Alright, before we get started, a couple things. One, if you want to see the second Spawn movie after this one, because there's going to be a few of them, make sure to hit the like button. At 200 likes, I will drop the next movie. Of course, the reason there's multiple is there are so many issues to cover. Just in Spawn solo run alone, there's over 300. So, in order to properly make the videos a good length to where you get a good movie out of it, but you also, it's well made and it's well put together, I'm going to chop it up. So, this is part one. I call it Spawn Chasing Godhood. By the way, on a side note, for those that voted in the polls for the Christmas video, I definitely saw a lot of presents for Lord of the Rings. I will get Lord of the Rings content out as soon as I can. I just have to go back and read through the material. After I get through the stuff I'm working on now, I can do that and we'll definitely get y'all Lord of the Rings content. So I heard you guys on that one and I will do what I can to get you content soon. So, for those celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas. That's when you will be seeing this video. I hope you enjoy this Spawn movie. It is a mix of the story and scaling. The reason it's a mix is because I think it's hard to use scaling if you don't have context. So I want you guys to at least have some of the story so that you understand what's going on. So if someone asks you, hey, how did Spawn, how is he FTL? And when you explain the feat, you understand how to tell them how it went down, what the situation was, all of that. Also, it gives you a chance to understand if you want to actually go read this yourself. You might really enjoy this video and want to go read Spawn. So, giving you a bit of both sides of it, the scaling and the story. So, I hope you enjoy. And with that out of the way, let's begin. So, first off, issue one, we see Spawn getting up. He's confused and he has a lot of questions, of course. Spawn and the reader are privy to the same amount of information. We don't really know anything at the start. Spawn realizes he's missing basically all his memories and he's trying to cope with his current situation. Um, when this occurs, we see that he actually did die and came back to life. That is something we do know. So right away, he's some kind of zombie, if not supernatural. We then quickly understand that he formerly was known as Al Simmons. Al Simmons happened to be a legend for his military accolades. He once even saved the president's life from an assassin, and his background includes work in the Marines. His death is pretty suspect because of an incident that occurred in Botswana, but they played it off as, unrelated. But right away, we get a glimpse of how skilled Spawn is, and that's something I definitely want to emphasize in this video. Spawn is underrated when it comes to how skilled he is. Al Simmons was an absolute monster when he was alive. Spawn realizes that in this new form after death, he has a significant amount of untapped power at his disposal, but he has zero memories. However, he does either seem to be negging the no memories, like fighting to recover them, or just being fed them at this point, because he starts to remember one or two things at a time every now and then. And it leads to a lot of confusion in most of the beginning of the story arcs for Spawn. He's just confused, as are the reader, but it makes for an amazing read. I actually really enjoy reading this. We then cut over to seeing police investigating a murder. A man fell 4 stories, but the fall did not kill him. Rather, his heart had been cut out and stuffed in his mouth. We then see Spawn flying over the city and dropping in on thugs, so automatically we can see he can do stuff like fly in this current state. By the way, seeing such a brutal murder kind of emphasizes that the craziness in the world, we're going to see slowly get crazier and crazier to the point where, honestly, something like that going down isn't that special anymore. That's another day in the neighborhood. So you're going to see that, a progression of evil in the world, because that's a major theme in the story. Spawn casually blitzes and ragdolls a thug with one hand. We see, compared to normal people right away, Spawn's superhuman. It's not even remotely close in terms of speed. And while in the middle of absolutely ragdolling this group of thugs, Spawn is suddenly struck with a wave of memories from his former life. Specifically, he remembers the name of a woman who he remembers to be absolutely beautiful, and her name was Wanda. Spawn then soon realizes that this lady he's thinking of was his wife. He wants to get back to normal now and tries to take his suit off, which makes him realize he is absolutely crispy. Homeboy looks terrible. I just want y'all to know that. Spawn looks horrible. Absolutely burnt. You'll see it on the screen yourself. When he notices this about himself, it just almost instantly breaks. I'm like, damn, I definitely can't go back to normal. That's when we get to issue 2. Violator, who's in his clown form or incarnation, casually scales above this Spawn. We saw a different Violator later in the story, and we see several forms of him. He's one of the main characters in the story. If you like Violator, let me know in the comment section. Maybe we can get some content out on him. He is quite a troll, but he works for a devil-like figure we see in issue 2 that we learn the name of later. We then get evidence that Violator is massively above Spawn. He's mentally torturing Spawn casually and is basically a bully. So a lot of times in the beginning, Violator was just a straight up bully to Spawn. Without practice, Spawn managed to transmute himself. However, your boy Spawn did not get the desired result. So basically what happened was Spawn, in his former life, Al Simmons was a black man. He was trying to restore himself to that so that he could go back to his wife Wanda. When he attempted to transmute himself with this newfound inner power, he turned himself into a white blonde man. So he didn't get the desired effect, but we do find out, even without any training and any semblance of knowledge on his own skill set or power, Spawn can reality warp and transmute himself. That's crazy. We then find out in this issue that Jason Wynn will be the major op of Spawn, at least early on, and we will flesh out the character of Jason Wynn as we continue with the video. Jason is very important to the lore of Spawn. Violator then finds Spawn after Spawn has another episode of random memories popping up and basically just makes fun of Spawn for going through another one of those memory type seizures. We also see that Violator has size manip, as when him and Spawn kind of get into it, Violator size up on him. And, he had to thug him. He was like, look, Spawn, you don't scale to me, homie. So if you want me to really get active, we can get active. And Spawn was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that. Issue 3. We see that Violator actually should have to be able to dimension hop as he goes somewhere, quote, somewhere in time often. I'm going to explain to y'all how the physics don't really work the same in the Spawnverse and how there's some weird... there's so many arguments you can make for the Spawn meta that I want to introduce to you guys, especially in this video. And hopefully those theories I have will get fleshed out in later videos on this because I have to continue reading. But it's very fun to, think about, honestly, about how this possibly could scale. So I hope you guys keep an open mind as we go through this. Violator says Spawn didn't read the fine print on the deal he made with this devil-like figure, and that Spawn has people overseeing him. He has direct overseers like Violator, and he has people overseeing people like Violator. So it's actually it's a pretty crazy layout already. We see there's multiple tiers of characters in this story. Okay, so he is pulling up on Wanda's spot, right? He's like, yo, I need to see Wanda. And he immediately gets folded. Why? Because he sees her getting piped down by the homie from his past life, Terror. Now, obviously, there's some superficial reasons for why this is problematic or why it folded him. That's his wife. That's his former best friend. Sleeping together. Big deal. There's deeper stuff, too. Pretty much the only thing he remembers at this point is his love for his wife. And he just died. So that's all he has to live for. That's all he has to work off of for existing right now. And that's not an option. That's not his wife anymore, apparently, because she has a new man. So that's why it's devastating on many levels. Now, Violator shows up and heart rips Spawn. He just pulls up on him. Basically, he's been making fun of him for a long time. Makes fun of him for seeing his girl getting the treatment and rips his heart out. And he's like, "Oh, you can't be a true hell Spawn if you have a heart. You shouldn't need this." But then we see Spawn gets back up. Spawn has amazing regen and healing and durability, even in the early stages of his career. Issue 4. Obviously, as we can see by now, Spawn doesn't really need a heart to exist. This trips up Violator because he's like, "Yo, a Hellspawn as young as you shouldn't be this powerful. Who is giving you help?" And this is a big theme throughout the first movie you're watching right now. Is Spawn's random power-ups are sporadic, and a lot of people don't understand them and understand why he's even getting them. Physical harm is then revealed to not be the answer when it comes to killing a Hellspawn. The only way to properly take down permanently a Hellspawn is with divine light usage and decapitation. You got to decapitate him basically with God's divine light. That's how you permanently put down a Hellspawn. However, you can't beat the crap out of him. Now, Violator could have, or not Violator, I'm sorry, the leader whose name we learn later, the devil that Violator works for, could have granted limitless power to Spawn. Good actually naturally outscales evil in this verse, apparently. Um, Al also was insanely rare as a man, so he was an obvious choice for this devil figure to pick to be a Hellspawn, because Hellspawns are to be generals in his armies that will march against heaven, which we'll talk about later. It is obvious Spawn will become an absolute beast of a Hellspawn once his power is fully realized and matured. He also is stuck because if he uses all of his inherent power he now has, he officially loses his soul. It will go to the devil. If he doesn't do anything, evil on Earth will progress and grow. So basically, Spawn is stuck at this point. It's crazy. But it's also revealed that Spawn is for sure foretold to be pivotal in the war between heaven and hell, Armageddon, the fight for the ruler of everything. Al's anger and desperation is also so overwhelming, so powerful at this point, that his wife actually dreams about it. Issue 5. Billy Kincaid is a child killer who is going to put up Hall of Fame numbers once he is free. Jokes aside, homie's mentally deranged, and he's getting released even though it's pretty obvious he's going to go back to doing what he does. He has convinced everyone except Twitch and his partner Burke that he is cured of his evil ways. Burke and Twitch, by the way, end up being major characters. They're supposedly going to be major characters in the upcoming Spawn film, and I'm excited for that because Twitch is hilarious. Burke, though, is frustrated with the law. He just sees how it's flawed, how it fails in certain areas. And to me, at this point, reading it, I was like, this could be a natural bridge to Burke helping Spawn at some point, because Spawn's going to have to fight evil, as made obvious early on. And Burke has access to that because he's a cop. So it seems like a natural way in. Like, you know, one guy is disappointed with the law. He wants more done. Spawn can provide that. In his past life, Spawn has actually been paid to pull off a hit on Billy Kincaid. But plot armor was thick for that boy Billy. The cops got him before Spawn could pull the trigger. Billy is plotting to pull off another murder. Obviously, he is being hyped up to kill either a major child or perhaps even the new child in Wanda's life. The child that Spawn was not able to give her. By the way, that's a big deal to him. He was unable to get his wife pregnant when he was alive, and his buddy got her pregnant and they had a kid together. that pisses Spawn off a lot. It makes him really mad. Like, it's so bad. Burke discovers the dead body of Billy. Of course, Billy is strung up in the police headquarters. Spawn did this and left a note saying, he tortured all those kids. I tortured him. It was crazy. Of course, Burke is not upset because he knew what Billy was planning to do and he knew how bad Billy was, and he's glad somebody stopped him. Alright, so in Chapter 6, or Issue 6, Overkill is finally introduced. Overkill is a cyborg assassin typically employed by the mob. Now, he should scale above most normal methods of combat, given that the military has been called in on him multiple times, and he's casually causing Building Plus destruction, just basically memeing on them, like he's not even trying. We then see that conventional weaponry is confirmed to be unable to actually harm Overkill. This is crazy because the military also had prep time and still didn't have a way to really damage Overkill. Overkill then one-shots the Silver God that can one-shot 2 city blocks at a time. That's how big of an explosion it caused when it fired, and he one-shot it. Spawn's presence alone makes the people in power nervous. This actually later on is shown to extend across multiple levels of existence, but they've been literally popping hobos to try to get to Spawn. You'll see throughout the story that Spawn's friendship with the homeless in his area becomes a big part of his character. Since they need to get rid of Spawn because he's a threat to their enterprises, they call in Overkill to handle him. So, when Overkill and Spawn clash, Spawn's suit passively starts assaulting Overkill. Overkill fails to blitz Spawn initially and isn't really doing anything to him, and you gotta remember he caught Spawn off guard, and Spawn's trying to figure out what's going on, and he doesn't know how to use any of his equipment. Al reveals that he has actually fought cyborgs before in the past. He also manages to damage Overkill in this exchange. Overkill could have killed him according to Spawn, but Spawn was purposely avoiding usage of power. So you're going to see this a lot in the early arcs. Base Spawn, without using powers, is actually incredibly strong and overachieves a lot. This is when we see Spawn decide to, okay, I need to get back to what I know, which is weaponry, and he steals from an armory to get weapons to fight. Issue 7. It's revealed that Spawn, aka Al Simmons, has world-class knowledge on weaponry and knows how to kill high-tier targets. He steals military weaponry in this chapter to go after Overkill, and he wants to do this with this method because 1, he's comfortable with it, and 2, it avoids the use of power. Spawn also confirms if he did use his own personal power, he would easily one-shot Overkill. Spawn then shows he has the ability to naturally teleport. This ability is explained to tear him apart on a molecular level and moves him at the speed of light to a predetermined location. Spawn's memories blast him again as he realizes it was someone he knew that had killed him in his past life, so slowly but surely we see Spawn piece together who exactly pulled the trigger. This issue also revealed that his cape is not a normal cape. In fact, it is sentient. It can operate on its own, and as the story progresses, we see what really motivates the cape. Spawn pulls up on the Mafia in order to lure out Overkill and starts destroying the Mafia building, and he is successful in pissing off Overkill and getting him to come out. Spawn, in this exchange with Overkill, who like I said is a world-class assassin cyborg, Spawn shows he's just as skilled, if not more. Despite forgetting his situation in which he's like, oh, I can't really use my powers or anything like that, he's still able to improvise mid-fight and extremely damage Overkill. This is when we see Spawn absolutely destroy Overkill. He even explains that in his past life, he had fought people like Overkill before and destroyed them then. So, like I said, Al Simmons is one of the most underrated characters in Base. A lot of people don't talk about how skilled he is. They just say, oh, he had like Marine experience and stuff. No, it's a lot deeper than that. He's extremely skilled. Issue 8, we see the Deadlands where Kincaid is. This alone has 10 realms, which are described to be like spheres stacking within each other. Beings from the 6th realm actually collect souls for like clout in the area. Basically, if the more souls, the better souls you have, the more bling you have, the more respect you get. The Prime from the highest sphere has a macro computer that souls are fed into. Vindicator is one of the 5 brothers and is from the 8th sphere. And this trip was to recruit Billy to that sphere. The 5th sphere, I believe, has a fair argument for being outerversal. So it contains meta creatures, like meta squids. Meta comes from the Greek word for transcend. It is to be beyond. A meta squid would be a squid transcendental to all squids. Thus, to do so, it would have to be above dimensionality to ensure that. Basically, to encompass all, it has to be above all. That should be obvious. So I think there is the fair argument that if this level of hell has metaphysical beings or meta beings transcendental to all of the other forms, it could be outerversal. You could completely interpret it different and just say it's not, but something to think about. Also, we see that the 8th sphere has creatures like Malabog, which is the devil that we've seen before, and we're about to officially see that that's what his name. We're going to call him, I don't know how you officially pronounce it, but we're going to just call him the devil for now. And it is the devil's realm on the 8th floor. He gives out neural parasites to members of his squad that are his elite generals. These neural parasites, of course, are the symbiote and suit we see Spawn wearing. The parasites are to be permanently bound to their host and are connected to your central nervous system, basically becoming a natural extension of yourself. And in a lot of cases, you don't even have to operate, it'll do it for you. Down in hell, it is revealed that the concepts of good and evil are simply too simple of ideas for beings that operate on this level. They operate on a higher level than the concepts of good and evil. That's simply too basic to encompass what they do. Issue 9. Hellspawn, still in hell, are special because they are in realms beyond. It is considered fair game to go after Spawn on Earth. So basically, if a Hellspawn's in hell, you're not going to see angels pull up on them. But if they're on Earth, they're fair game. Some of the main raw powers included in the skill set of Hellspawns, even when they start out, include transmutation and reality adjustment, aka reality warping. You really, according to the angels, want to catch a Hellspawn before they start maturing, because that's when you have a fair chance of beating them. After that, it's basically you're going to get your ass beat. Weaponry used to hunt Hellspawn are powerful enough to erase you on the physical plane of existence. It completely erases you. It's not just gonna destroy, like, kill you, one-shot you. It's trying to completely get rid of you. Spawn also reality warps wine for his people. I believe this is analogous to him being the Jesus symbol for the homeless. Makes sense and is consistent with how he's portrayed in their eyes. And then we see that Angela is quite a problem for Hellspawn. She is an angel that is quite rogue. Now, she has her own mini-series that I haven't looked into yet that has a couple incidents with Spawn. I'll look into that eventually, but for right now, I'm just reading the solo run. But Angela could easily sense Spawn because of his stress. Spawn easily evades her, and he doesn't even want to fight. Angela actually typically hunts spawns, so this is an impressive feat for him to casually avoid her like light attacks. Yes, Spawn, even in early stages, is light speed. Angels are confirmed to fight with light, use light-based attacks, and he's casually avoiding her. Spawn then gets blasted, sucks Angela into a weird dimension that we find out is kind of a limbo later, and scares her. So basically, this entanglement, this battle with him in this realm is so intense that he doesn't tank it, but he definitely comes out looking tougher than her, and she gets run off the block. Issue 10. Spawn and Al are both privy to different sets of information. One knows the inner workings of hell, One knows the inner workings of the real world. Basically, this shows that the two are not operating on the same mental scape right now. It's kind of like Hulk and Banner when they start out, but obviously they have a lot of potential to, once they combine their knowledge, the suit, symbiote, and him, they will be incredibly dangerous. Spawn doesn't need energy to teleport as he feels he is already everywhere in the world. This makes him lethal if he's familiar with the battlefield. So, what I mean by that is Spawn knows all the spots on the battlefield. It's not going to really require much of him to teleport around and spam it because he already knows where he's going. It's a predetermined location you're teleporting to. So, the more you know, the more you go. Bars. Um, we also see Marvel and DC heroes were being sacrificed so that beings like Spawn could exist. They literally show the arm of Hulk, Flash, Shazam, Batman, the Thing, Ben Grimm. The only reason you could argue this doesn't make sense is because Ben Grimm would never get caged up. But anyways, they have all these recognizable heroes, and we see Spawn, bare minimum, fighting these heroes in this cage was, quote, star level in the incident where he feels uncapped in its power. But his power is also described as unimaginable and unlimited. So what likely is going on is him saying, oh, it's like the weight of a star. Al is just finding something to compare it to, but his power is actually described as unimaginable and unlimited. The heroes offer him power that with one word can absolutely destroy, disrupt, do whatever you want to the multiverse. They are of gods, cosmos, and energies itself. They come from fundamental forces. Superman speaks to Spawn. He looks a little evil in this portrayal, which would probably make him way more interesting than the real Superman. But he tells Spawn basically that Spawn has to be the representative for all of them. In this instance, Spawn feels the rush of becoming what I interpret to be as like almost one with creation. And he also discusses how there are levels to infinite in the verse. It's not just a simple infinite or a simple infinite transcendence between dimensions. There are so many levels to it. Superman, he sees in the cage and he refers to him as the alien who came before us or the first superhero. Superman mentions Doomsday, which of course would be a reference to his death. Superman is, like I said, referred to as the archetype for all of them in this story, and it seems to be that Spawn is being christened to take the mantle as the one new great hero. The creators are shown in this comic to have sold these superheroes. That's why they're caged up, and we see these creators with bags over their head. Spawn quite literally views them and their makers at this point as he's being led on a journey through this weird land. He views them as fiction, pretty much. And then we see, basically, as Spawn seeing all DC Comics, Marvel Comics, all these characters that he views as fiction, he views their writers and sees them get rid of these characters. His writer says Image Comics is the best, so Spawn also sees Image Comics as fiction, which is his own publisher, but he's also told, we'll never get rid of you. And you see at the end of the comic the copyright to Spawn. Issue 11. The hobos wake up Spawn from this experience, although clearly at first he thinks it was a dream. It was not just a simple dream, we know that. A blast through his chest from a device that can one-shot tanks only serves to piss off this version of Spawn. Once again, evidence Spawn is constantly holding back. This whole first movie, you'll see Spawn's constantly suppressed. He really has to suppress himself because he doesn't want to spend energy. If he spends energy, he loses his soul. Spawn's hobo turf is in the middle of a turf war that involves cyborgs. Spawn begins to use his military past to strategize to win this war. Spawn then casually evades blasts from arm cannons that are firing lasers, so if you needed further confirmation that this version of Spawn, even early on, is light speed or FTL in combat, he blatantly dodges lasers point blank. Spawn, in an effort to shift this war in his favor, mind hacks both gangs as a projection and causes the war to shift in his favor as he tricks all of them. The armor of a cyborg he faces named Byron is at least nuke level. It's explained to be at least that level. Spawn, it's also important to note, is also tanking, shredding on an atomic level each time he teleports. He then shreds the armor of Byron on an atomic level as he uses teleportation as an attack. Absolutely genius of him. Issue 12. Love is the catalyst for wars both on Earth and in realms beyond. It is actually what led Al to sell his soul. It's also his fate that the devil Malbolgia owns his soul for eternity, and so if he bypasses this, if Spawn ever goes on in this story to retain his soul and beat this, it's fate resistance or destiny resistance. It's a pretty good hack. He confirms when he fought Angela that he dragged Angela to Purgatory where his powers were gone momentarily. This was the point in which Angela fled. Spawn also is noted he has pretty much no control over his hacks at this point. While on the spot, he can sometimes produce results. He really doesn't have much actual control. Wynn and the CIA are confirmed to be corrupt. Like I said, Jason Wynn is a man of power, a presidential advisor, and one of the most dangerous men in the world, and one of the biggest rivals to Spawn. Terry, Spawn's former best friend, has been looking into the corruption of Wynn. Now Wynn's got the drop on him, and they're investigating him and potentially setting him up to mess up his life. Obviously, at this point, it's confirmed Spawn's death was a setup as well, if you didn't already know. In a kind of sad moment, we see Spawn visit his granny. He tells her she's got a spot in heaven, unlike bad men like himself. Granny tells him he has a chance at heaven because... Now, the one thing he does get out of this trip that does cheer him up a little bit is his grandma confirms that Wanda loved him, but not only that, she still loves him and misses him every day, which kind of helps him at least temporarily cope with the situation. We then switch over to see that Twitch and his dog, Detective Burke, are being investigated for Kincaid's murder. This is kind of obvious why this would happen, because he ended up dead in their police precinct, as well as these two were the ones that said, yo, we believe he's still guilty and dangerous. So they would have the most motive out of everybody there. Terry gets punked at his crib about basically from the Wynn's people saying, you know, we know you're annoying, we know you're a problem, and we're going to handle you and your family if you keep it up. And we see Spawn turn up with the hobos at this point, kind of celebrating the fact his wife does miss him. And a hobo during the party puts on his mask, tries to put on Spawn's mask, and it almost kills him, like as an automatic defense, and he has to save the homeless guy. And explains the auto defense of his suit and that you can't just put his stuff on because it could literally kill you. And then Spawn realizes his memories have been semantical this whole time. What I mean by that is he had been seeing flashes of a church. He's like, oh, I was killed in a church. Not true. It wasn't a church he was seeing. It was a metaphor for Chapel. He knew a man named Chapel when he served, and Chapel is the man who pulled the trigger and killed him. Issue 13. Chapel had joined the Youngblood Assassin Network as an experimental killer. He was physically altered as well. Spawn, and a display of genius from Al Simmons' perspective. Spawn briefly saw this place 5 years ago and still remembers the layout enough to make a plan around. That's crazy. He only saw it briefly, and he still has like an exact layout plan to take down the Youngblood organization when he attacks. Very impressive memory feat and shows his intelligence and IQ and brilliance as a fighter. Spawn drops in on the Youngblood gang, bolos them, and most of them don't even see him. In fact, it takes a few seconds for them to register that not only was Spawn now gone, but their leader was gone too. And we see that Spawn had BFR'd himself and Chapel to Botswana. Obviously, this place holds significant value between the two because this is the spot in where Spawn was killed. Spawn has no fear of a skilled matchup with Chapel and absolutely rocks him now. When I say skilled matchup, Spawn specifically stated we're throwing hands. It's going to come down to who's better. He wasn't using powers or anything. And Chapel's one of the most skilled assassins in the world and starts getting throttled. Chapel actually, um, we discovered, killed Spawn back in the day because he found out Spawn. Well, he didn't find out. He was told by a superior that Al Simmons was a spy. So in his mind, Chapel was killing a spy. He wasn't even killing a friend anymore. His friend had become a spy. He didn't argue against orders. He'd been a soldier his whole life. He knew the protocol, follow orders to a T, and he did that. So we find out it's not that Chapel's a good guy. He's a psychopath. Don't get me wrong, but we find out it wasn't personal or anything with Spawn. And we find out Spawn had been toying with Chapel that entire time in the fight just to get back at Chapel for killing him. Um, and then Spawn tells him, this is going to be a slow get back at you guys, but let me give you a reminder of who you're messing with. And he permanently warps Chapel's face so that it's scarred for the rest of his life to look like the war paint from back in the day. So it's a pretty crazy, intense issue. Now, issue 14. Violator pays kids to hear him lie about his beef with OG Spawn 800 years ago. He portrays the original Hellspawn as an evil wizard, and that Violator was the hero of the story. It's kind of funny watching him tell this to these kids. It shows what really happened while he's telling the story, and it's hilarious seeing how much he's lying. According to Violator, he actually managed to one-shot the Spawn from back in the day with an acidic Hellfire Blast. This would be pretty impressive if it's true. Of course, Violator tends to cap a lot, but he's pretty strong, and I heard he gets a lot stronger as we continue through the story. Now, issue 15. Violator, according to the narrator, in his true form is the embodiment of evil. The reason he got cast out and he's on Earth in this clown form is because he pissed off his master. When he was fighting the OG Spawn, he destroyed the Spawn's armor and not Spawn, and they started fighting again. Also, it stated that any Spawn is as good in combat, skill-wise, as any human can possibly be. So, like, Hell Spawns are the pinnacle of fighting skill. Violator is also shown to have kind of won against the old Hellspawn, and he looked like a dragon. It's rumored he was like the first dragon, but he kind of won. It was pretty impressive. So Violator does have feats. And then we see that Spawn, of course, is holding his block down, and what I mean by that is he's taking his position seriously as the head of the Hobo clan and making sure people don't mess with his kind. But you will find out later in the story he sucks at his job. Issue 16. Psychoplasm from Hell is a material made of raw emotions. It is physical, but it's actually just a physical embodiment of raw emotions. Al was sold to Hell in exchange for the army to get access to stores of psychoplasm to weaponize. They actually used Al's memories to make a town out of substance, an entire town made of psychoplasm that covers the hole to Hell. So basically, during one war, we accidentally blew open a hole to the dimension of Hell in some weird warp way, and they covered it with this town of psychoplasm made by the bad memories of Al Simmons. Spawn was in a horrible mood, so he decided to flex and beat up a bunch of armed thugs without power. Angels are called by heaven to bolo spawns. Spawn's considered a massive threat on a cosmic scale if he is allowed to grow. It's also confirmed he beat Angela in their matchup. So Spawn is considered such a crazy prospect as a Hellspawn that if Heaven lets him even develop a little more, it could actually tip the favor in Evil's direction to win the Holy War. So Spawn, you'll see, has basically beef with everybody because he's that crazy of a prospect. The Angels are creating a special soldier to face Spawn. They're actually the angels have a base on Earth, and they also have something in orbit to help them create stuff, and they are like the Earth protectors of heaven, and they're generating a soldier to face spawn at these locations. Wynn goes on to one-shot ninjas in his personal workout. So we see Jason Wynn actually has hands. He is then selected to become the Angelic Warrior. Despite not being a good guy, he becomes the Angelic Warrior, and you'll find out why that's not weird later on. Wynn now bears heavenly elemental fire and is no longer, quote, living, at least while in this form. His new form, dope art, by the way. You can say what you want about the Spawn run, but I love the art. Jason Wynn has become the anti-Spawn, bearer of the heavenly light. Issue 17. Malbolgia literally looks down on the universe like a toy. We see that in the art form. Amazing art, like I said. And then we see this devil-like being contact Spawn and explains how psychoplasm works. It purely is reactionary and form based on thought and emotion. It is only bound by ideas, essentially. Spawn feels static as anti-Spawn arrives, and his senses are more enhanced and attuned to picking up on danger from heavenly threats. So, like, if you're a heavenly threat or someone from that realm, he's more likely to sense you trying to attack me. He does have precog regardless, but it's a lot better with sources of power like that because it's so against his nature. Anti-Spawn absolutely rocks Spawn. And Spawn says literally it feels like everything inside of him is on fire. We see there's a bunch of minor demons there trying to tear apart Spawn after he gets rocked, and Anti-Spawn one-shots them casually. Anti-Spawn is also confirmed to be way above Angela and uses the heavenly light. This was a thrashing, you guys. Like, it wasn't that close of a fight. Spawn then takes multiple blasts from the heavenly fire again, which, by the way, is supposed to kill Spawns. It's that capable. It's that potent. And he teleports away. He manages to get out. Spawn is insanely durable, man. Anti-Spawn, however, doesn't care, tracks him down. And that's when he says, yo, just so you know, my tracking abilities span throughout all of time and space. Basically, if you're in existence, he's going to find you. Spawn's survived multiple heavenly light blasts and is still alive. It's absolutely crazy. Issue 18, Outerversal Realm, the Overlap, Birth of Magic, no spiritual or physical bounds here. It's also the connecting point for all realms, so like it's above all of them. It's literally the overlap to the point it could write physics for other realms like hell and stuff like that. They literally decide on how physics work in the dimensions. I firmly believe this place scales insanely high. I guess you can argue about it in the comment section how high you think it scales, but it definitely does say it has no physical or spiritual bounds. Houdini also refers to magic as an extra dimensional power. Extra dimensional, of course, is outside of the reality we perceive. Houdini also says magic is beyond spiritualism, which in definition, if you look up the definition of spiritualism, also contains things like metaphysics. Metaphysics, of course, helps explain how everything works. It's supposed to be like the foundation of things. So a lot of foundational archetypal ideas are kind of discussed and are supposed to, and a lot of times in spiritualism, be enveloped in there. So, like I said, a lot of high tier arguments for this realm and for the idea of magic in this verse. We then see that Spawn's suit can act without himself wasting personal energy. This is actually very crucial because he needs to preserve his energy. Also, Houdini explains magic is essentially truth manipulation. Quote, your lie is so big, everyone believes it. So, like, the universe believes it. It's just, your magic literally manipulates truth. Spawn's a creature of sorcery. It's confirmed he is a being of magic. Manifestation is his best weapon, and if he's familiar with something, he can reality warp it to produce it. So if I was Spawn, I would go around learning every possible thing in the verse so I could produce it with manifestation. Spawn's powers are limited by human comprehension. Thus, his true potent raw power is beyond the mind. To those that think supermental is the meta that makes you universal, that's what Spawn is. There you go. Houdini is also revealed to be one of those people that hangs out in the overlap. Quite impressive. Houdini was very interesting in this run. Magic doesn't directly defy natural laws. It just changes them or how they work. Overlappers use Prime to link to all universes to conduct experiments. Houdini creates a vacuum in reality when he BFRs an atomic bomb. So what happens was Houdini and Spawn are trying to stop an attack and they find an atomic bomb. At the last second, Houdini BFRs it, and when he does, it creates like a vacuum in reality, like a rip that starts sucking stuff in. We then see Spawn successfully manifest a key to a car which triggers a return to the overlap. The overlap, of course, described as timeless and infinite, has to be beyond the realms because all the other realms are described as, quote, somewhere in time, although time has a completely different value in this verse. But still, it's beyond that. Just supports the high tier arguments for overlap. Issue 21. Hobos give godly pep talks. It's not really much going on in this issue. I'm not going to waste time on it. He gets a pep talk from some hobos, though. Issue 22. Spawn has his face stitched up with a shoelace to avoid using energy to heal. This shoelace is actually very important. His chains also are shown to auto-block machine guns as Spawn lets his suit reflexively respond more and more. So slowly, Spawn's allowing his suit to be more assertive in combat. It's shown Spawn and the mob at this point have major beef, and they have built Overtkill to combat Spawn. It's an upgrade and a bigger version. Overtkill is sent to meet Terry Fitzgerald, who is being set up. Of course, Terry Fitzgerald, if you remember, is the former friend to Al. Overt is multiple times the size of a human in this scan, and a dumpster is small and looks like a toy compared to him. A disabling shot doesn't even slow Spawn. Overtkill, upgraded Overkill, gets blitzed by Spawn, and Terry is saved before Overtkill can even react. Overtkill also uses lasers as specifically stated to be laser weaponry, and Spawn is blitzing him and casually reacting to him. Also, his cape easily intercepts the laser post-firing, so not only did it stop the laser, but the laser had already been fired. And it was only like maybe 100 meters. It's not that far of a distance. Overkill also weighs 1,200 pounds for those that want to know his damn weight. Anyways, Twitch is also confirmed to be Deadshot, as my homie Twitch does not miss, dog. If you need him to pull off a shot in the clutch, Twitch won't miss. Issue 24. Twitch says if you snitch, he will basically cap you. Twitch is a beast. As you can tell, he's one of my favorite characters. He's hilarious. He comes off as a wimp. He looks like a wimp, but he's actually about that life. Spawn also shows he has the ability to manipulate his density instantly. It's a reflex. And it's pretty cool to see. Also beautifully drawn. Spawn casually gets to drop on Jason Wynn, who is one of the most powerful men in the world, so security at this point, earthly security, doesn't really matter. Spawn's going to bypass it. Spawn threatens everyone to boost his reputation so that he can have a mental edge over his opposition. He uses, mental warfare more so now because Spawn's only one person. And so he has to deal with multiple fronts. And it's better if he's in their head, messing them up before he even engages them. Issue 25. Spawn's chains in his skill allows him to blitz and choke a demonic monster. At this point, Spawn is engaged in a turf war. This beast is a result of an experimentation as an assassin for Vito. Vito, of course, is one of the mobsters. Issue 26. The concept of evil is abstract in this verse as it manifests in many emotions like greed and lust. The 8th layer of hell has a myriad of layers. Myriad means countless, so you can interpret it as infinite or countless layers within this realm of hell alone. So just this layer alone, hell alone, has countless layers. That's crazy. The Count returns, of course, the cool hobo looking guy that helps out Spawn. He talks about how Malbolgia is a devil, but not the devil, suggesting there's way higher powers at play. And he also says that Armageddon itself is approaching. Spawn hasn't been helping hobos as much as he could, and Count explains that he gives them hope and that they don't just leech. Like, sometimes Spawn thinks that the hobos are leeching off him, but at this point they're not. They're actually pretty cool, and Spawn kind of has to come to terms with that. Hey, like, yo, I can sometimes low-key be a jerk. And Count always serves to kind of be that humbling force in his life, at least early on in the stories, and it's pretty cool to see. The Count's also one of my favorite characters, and you'll discover why as more of his origin is revealed as you go further in the story. Hell spawns are to follow 4 predestined paths. Heaven is explained to be as, like, basically the light version of hell. It's also stated to have innumerable layers, which is crazy. Spawn gets pulled into a dimensional umbrella that's outside of perceived time, and this is where he meets with the lady that's in charge of, like, the Angel Corps on Earth. Issue 27. Mr. Kron is about to beef with Spawn in the name of God. Kron low-key gave me Joel Osteen vibes. He was kind of creepy. He's an extremist and he's going after Spawn. Spawn, when he realizes he made a mistake and it ended up getting his friend killed, uses resurrection hacks. It does require some personal energy, but he uses resurrection hacks. He gets temporarily KO'd because he's depowered heavily and he wasn't prepared for a sneak shot from one of his enemies. Spawn in base is also 500 pounds, in case y'all are wondering. Spawn, one shot blows off the arm of the preacher that's coming after him, and the hole that was put in his chest had only pissed him off. Spawn goes on to fight this creature, this preacher, aka Curse, who had pulled up on him with tech, and he's just wrecking him. When Spawn's fighting, it's also stated that he doesn't even fear the wrath of God itself. It's just, if you piss off Spawn, he's swinging. Issue 28. Spawn crucifies the preacher to send a message. Basically, if you pull up to my hood, you're going to get the same treatment this cyborg-looking preacher got. Spawn also saves Wanda from getting attacked in an alley as she goes to meet Spawn. And she gives him a picture of her family with her, Terry, and the kid. Technically, she cucked him right here. Technically, he got the treatment, but it is what it is. Issue 29. Issue starts with them telling us Spawn survived a brawl in heaven in another mini-series. He got taken up to heaven and survived a fight. Spawn happens to collapse at the feet of the realest white boy in the hood named Little Andy Frank. He doesn't even snitch on seeing Spawn. He takes him directly to the wagon and takes him to his house. We see Andy has scars, and it's implied his dad beats him. It's actually kind of a sad storyline, but little Andy is a beast. We then see confirmation that Andy gets boloed by his father, who's a police officer. Spawn then deduces that the boy gets beaten, even though the kids are against snitching. They've been lying to Spawn, little Andy and his brother, about getting beat, and Spawn's just figuring it out himself. And we know how that's going to turn out. We then find out that Police Chief Banks had a senator's kid killed by Billy Kincaid. So Burke and Twitch are having big beef with the police chief because they found out he had a kid killed via the ice cream murderer himself, Billy Kincaid. So it's a whole cat and mouse game right now, and we know Chief Banks works for Wynn. Wanda can't seem to recognize that Spawn's a good dude, as Spawn actually saves the boys from getting beat by their dad. And we actually see Spawn confront the dad, and Spawn tells him he had hit family before and it's not worth it. And we see Spawn had actually put the hands on Wanda before. I was shocked, but it did happen apparently in this flashback. And then, as a token for how he treats his kids, Spawn warps the dad to cover him in tattoos from head to toe that says, "I beat my kids." It was horrible. That dad got hella exposed right there. And while Spawn thought it sent a message to the dad like, yo, do this again and it's worse, it had the reverse effect, and you'll see soon. We see that the dad goes after the kids after he gets these tattoos, is gonna kill Andy, is choking the life out of him, and the dad gets shot at the end. The kids are turned into killers. Issue 30. Spawn's stuck in Alabama after being sexually harassed by Angela in her miniseries. Spawn was also a ninja commando and an assassin in his past life. It's revealed he has a very extensive background as a martial artist and a assassin. Spawn goes on to maul the Ku Klux Klan in Alabama after they try to hang him, and it's a whole mess. Basically, he's helping a family. They're getting harassed by the Klan. Of course, Spawn was black in his past life. He doesn't like the Klan either. The judge, though, is a part of the Klan. And then after, helping side with the Klan, they go to take care of the black family. Spawn gets a hold of the judge and turns the judge black. Spawn turned a KKK judge black. And when the judge's friends pull up to him, they see a black man in the Klan robe. They say, "How can you disrespect us like this?" And they lynch him. Spawn got homeboy lynched. I'm telling y'all, don't beef with Spawn. He's mad petty with his punishments for you. Issue 31, we see Spawn missed his people. He's coming back from the Klan's people in Alabama. Sees his hobo friends. He's like, "Man, I miss y'all." And he reveals he actually avoided using energy to escape from heaven. That's actually quite impressive. Spawn's suit, ever since he went to heaven, by the way, has been having issues. It's been acting up, acting strange, been erratic, and it's directly linked to him coming back from heaven. And Twitch and Burke, now that they have the drop on the chief because Spawn gave them a file with some info on the chief and the situation with Billy Kincaid, they've been trolling the chief and he hates it. So obviously beef is going to get a lot more serious with them later. New anti-Spawn is introduced because Jason Wynn only held the title for like 5 seconds. He's called Redeemer and is stronger than the Wynn version. He's considered just a better version. Redeemer shows up, starts fighting Spawn, and is slapping Spawn around. It's pretty bad. And then we see that Spawn's suit heals itself, and he gets back up. Now in issue 32, Spawn violates the ceasefire with Heaven by attacking their Earth headquarters to save his friend. So Anti-Spawn, aka Redeemer, found one of the hobos who had residue of Spawn on him because he was one of the guys Spawn said hi to when he got back. And he takes him back to the HQ to have him analyzed, and Spawn's not having it and attacks the HQ. Cog, aka the dude that hangs out with him, the old man that's kind of wise, explains to Spawn that he needs to control himself because if he doesn't, he'll be playing right into the hands of hell. Spawn's also a god tier bluffer. You'll see that throughout many times in this run, he bluffs his way out of a lot of things because he's oftentimes avoiding using power. Redeemer pulls up via a light beam with Spawn's friend in order to, handle him. By the way, it's obviously not normal light as this is Heaven's Light. Spawn's suit actually manages to amputate Redeemer when they scrap again. Redeemer's even capable of killing angels with his raging blasts, and Spawn's holding his own against him and even harming him. He tanks a Redeemer bloodlusted blast to the face and survives. It's absolutely nuts because Redeemer's not holding back at all, and he's stronger than the anti-Spawn we saw before. So obviously Spawn's power progression is pretty rapid. God was present in avatar form at the building, and we find out that Spawn is shown to not be evil. So the reason he was able to get into the Earthly Heaven HQ is because he wasn't fully evil. If he was, you're not able to get onto the property. But since he's not actually evil and he was there to save his friend, he was allowed on the property. It's a pretty cool little catch-22 there. By the way, Cog states that Spawn surviving the incident in which the building was breached, him surviving is insanely impressive. Issue 33. We find out that someone is once again scheming on Spawn, seems to be a devil-like figure. Bobby pulls up on Spawn, once again checks Spawn for being a jerk. Spawn is very erratic in his behavior for obvious reasons. He's dealing with so much psychological trauma, but oftentimes he mistakenly puts blame on himself or others or tries to separate himself from people. And Bobby's explaining, dude, we had issues before you showed up. Sure, you brought issues with you, but there's always been issues, and life's better for us now that you're here because you give us hope. So he had to really check Spawn and remind him of how life was. We also find out that Twitch is a ladies' man. Big facts, my homie Twitch can pull any girl he wants because he's in the hospital and all the hot nurses are there. This demon that is going to be messing with Spawn, we kind of see operating in the shadows, has info on Spawn which will lead to an eventual battle. The way he consumes a heart, you automatically assume Violator. That seems to be the main thing Violator loves to do. And then we see it is Violator. Violator's pulled up on Spawn, and Violator's pissed because he wants to be a Hell Spawn himself. He doesn't feel like someone like Spawn, who is a foreigner to Hell, should have the chance to be a leader of a Hell army if he's not even originally from Hell. He just feels like that's not fair at all. Spawn's so ahead of schedule in developing his powers that Violator assumes he has outside help. That's how strong Spawn's getting, and that's how out of control his power growth is. That even Violator's like, yo, chill, someone's definitely helping you. Issue 34. Violator was born a, quote, eternity ago on the 8th level of Hell and had no reason to exist. He actually didn't have a purpose. He was just born without a purpose. We also find out demons can breathe anywhere. They don't rely on water. They don't rely on oxygen, nothing. They can breathe anywhere, it doesn't matter. Even a weakened suit of Spawn, as obviously Spawn's been weakened or suppressed this whole time, can heavily damage Violator in their fight, and he actually gives them a really good fight. Also, 8th level of Hell is described as a void and is between Limbo and Purgatory. Violator, in an effort to undermine Spawn and everything he does, offers to help win in his battle against Spawn and all the crap he's dealing with. We also find out that Twitch has one of the hottest girls in the game as a wife. Burke finds this out and is like, yo, chill. Also, Spawn's letting Hell corrupt him because Spawn doesn't understand how to control his emotions, and how not controlling his emotions truly sells his soul more and more. Also, it's shown Terry is an obvious jobber. Issue 35. Spawn may be a super spawn as he's 7 years ahead of schedule. So he actually might be a super OP version of the typical spawn. And the typical spawn's already capable of leading demons against angels in unholy wars. So it's quite impressive. He also learns of Wynn and how Jason Wynn is involved in his murder. Chief Banks, under pressure from Spawn, confesses that Wynn hired him to hire Billy Kincaid. So it's an elaborate scheme. Wynn at the top, Chief Banks somewhere in the middle, and Billy being at the bottom. Also, even if you have the drop on him point blank with your gun, it doesn't matter. Spawn's way too fast. Obviously, he's going to be faster than the eye if he's reacted to lasers at this point. Spawn also gets a hold of Jason and starts folding him immediately, pressuring him, saying, yo, I'm going to kill you. I know you don't remember me, but you should remember me. And Jason Wynn's talking trash. And Spawn's like, you know what? I'm about to really just break your neck. And then he's doing this, by the way, because Jason Wynn's trying to hurt Terry, Wanda, and their kid. But Jason Wynn's security bursts in the room, led by Terry himself. So immediately, Spawn's like, I've been betrayed. 36, of course, at the one thing I do like about this series, at the beginning of every chapter, they do give a synopsis of things going down. For example, from like 35 and below, the synopsis was, Twitch returns to work. Burke struggles to connect Chief Banks to Billy Kincaid. With a panic-stricken phone call to Wynn, Banks learns that Spawn gave Wynn the file on him. We also see Spawn experiences another flashback revealing Wynn ordered his murder. Shortly after, Spawn encounters Bank just as Burke and Twitch catch up to him. Spawn learns Burke never gave Banks the file. Bank cracks under pressure and tells Spawn of Wynn's connection to Kincaid. Spawn goes to kill Wynn. Before he can, Terry bursts into the office, demanding Wynn's release. Unaware of Terry's motive, Spawn believes Terry has joined forces with Wynn. Obviously, this is dangerous because you don't want beef with Spawn. He's going to kill you. Also, Spawn said shooting him is not an option if he truly wants to. He can just dip out the way. It's no problem at all. Costume freaks supposedly exist in this verse, though we haven't seen any yet. They make a reference to costume freaks being in the verse, so I'm excited to see what that is. Twitch tells the chief, yo, look, you might have gotten the drop on us. You might have gotten us fired, because the chief does get him fired for messing with him. He gets him in a lot of trouble. And Twitch goes, I'm gonna kill you. So it doesn't matter, you're a dead man. Twitch is a thug. We find out Spawn has the ability to share memories and emotions and transfer his from you. He does this to Wanda in an effort to prove to her that he is Al, but she believes he's a demon just using Al's memories to haunt her. She's stupid. She's a jobber. Her and Terry are both jobbers. The freak is someone that Spawn meets. He says he's been tortured, his family killed, all that stuff. And Spawn helps him get the drop on his opponents to help him out. I thought initially it was Violator because Freak calls him Spawny, but I don't think it is. And we do find out that Freak is certified crazy. We see his wife or his ex-wife talking to someone explaining how he really was. They never had a kid that was killed. The wife's obviously not dead. He's just crazy, and Spawn's helping him because Spawn thinks he's just like him. We then see that Spawn's told by Cog he's not ready for the real war. He's been mentally chasing the wrong things and lacks a view of the bigger picture. One of the biggest problems for early on Spawn is he doesn't quite have a grasp on the overall theme, what's really going down in the grand scheme of things, and as a result, he gets boloed a lot, or he's just not reaching full potential. The doctor in this story we're being introduced to was trying to save his wife, and it ends up basically becoming a military experiment that will lead to cyborg-type beings being created. Spawn also was revealed, Al Simmons at least, to have been set up after he saved the president. And that Spawn, in his whole life, basically had been an unwilling puppet. He never realized it, but he was a puppet, and he's being a puppet now. And the only way he can stop being a puppet is to stop playing into the hands of hell. But unfortunately, Spawn's letting emotion dictate his moves at this point, and it's really haunting him. So, this doctor who was making military experiments made a cyborg mutant gorilla named Cygor, who has an awesome design, but you're going to see him off and on throughout this run. Issue 39, the cover's dope. Spawn killed Santa, obviously. A kid thanks Spawn, who is completely destroying some random thugs, is Santa. And then he sees Spawn chains the people up and makes them fly off, right? Like he's gonna torture them. And he thinks they're reindeer pulling a sleigh. It's hilarious. And because of what he did to the thugs, there was a stack of money that dropped, and the kid picked it up, and his mom, who was broke, used it to like help the building because everybody else was broke, and everybody had a great Christmas. So low key, Spawn is Santa with it. Now, issue 40. Spawn's suit never lies to him. It tried to warn him of an electric bomb on his throne, but he ignores it. So the instincts of the suit is always right. It's always going to tell him, yo, this is true danger, but he ignores it a lot and assumes it's just tripping. Massive electric attacks at this point can KO his necroplasm. It is a weakness at this point, so like yeah, obviously Thor beats the hell out of this version of Spawn. Cygor is 13 feet tall, by the way, for those that are interested in his stats. Curse ends up catching Spawn, taking him down, and torturing him, and he's actually performing an autopsy on Spawn while Spawn's alive. Spawn's getting completely dissected for the sake of Curse trying to figure out what Spawn is, and it's insane. He's conscious the whole time. It's also stated in issue 41 that the winner of Heaven vs. Hell will reign eternal. Necroplasm is made of actual hate and sinful thoughts, as explained during the experimentation in regards to this substance with Curse. 21-year-old Al Simmons was revealed to have survived being a prisoner of war in camp and torture, and learned how to kill at that point, learned how to be an absolute savage when the time calls for it. Cygor was also stated to be the absolute pinnacle of primates or simians prior to surgery. He was the absolute peak because only the absolute peak could survive the pain of the cybernetic process. He also seems to have a grasp on right from wrong and mistakes a hookup between two people as someone forcing themselves on someone else, and it doesn't end up well. Also, we see during this autopsy situation, Spawn can control his body parts even if they're amputated, and he uses his fist to attack a glass. The costume, when it's finally given a chance to be free, remakes Spawn, like gathers up all the pieces of Spawn, starts remaking him, and just starts destroying everything because of what happened to it. Because the suit is never supposed to be separated from the host, and that's what Curse was doing. So that's a big deal, and because of that, the suit starts going crazy. Weakened Spawn also gets caught in a massive explosion, and you're about to see what comes of it because of it. But as you see, it's on the top of like a massive mountain. Not a mountain, it's like it's weird, but this whole complex, all this is completely disintegrated. Issue 42. Spawn's suit is stated to save him no matter what, even if he's not conscious of it, because it needs its host. It tanks a comet level impact to preserve Al, just to make sure he survives. So it's going to get him out of death scenarios if it can, just because of how much it needs a host. Al at this point basically doesn't have a body at all because of his prior situation. Even still, the suit allows him to stand. It's crazy. The regen, the physical amps you get from the suit are nuts. Also, he encounters a kid, and Venom, as well as Marvel, are fiction to them. So the kid goes, "Yo, what is that?" And he says it's a symbiote. And the dude says, "Like Venom?" And he says, "No, that's fake. This is real." Stuff like that. And they talk about Marvel Comics, X-Force. And then we see Spawn actually can view Image Comics or his own brand as fiction. Nuts. So for those that are big on that fictional transcendence meta, here you go. I just gave you some crack. Also, Spawn helps this kid become popular. This kid's a geek. Obviously, he's reading all these comics, and Spawn basically gives him game. And in the end, because of a situation that goes down, the kid gets the girl he wanted, who didn't even know he was alive before that. So Spawn low-key can help you pull your girl. Issue 43, we find out that night creatures are evil conduits, and Spawn is considered the heart of darkness. So animals that operate in the night, insects that operate in the night, anything that operates in the night is considered a natural conduit of evil. Pretty interesting. I think it's a really cool aspect of the verse. And in this issue, because of the pressure from all sides, including Burke and Twitch being on his ass, Spawn being involved, Win, everybody, Chief Banks kills himself. Crazy moment, but he ends up taking his own life. Issue 44. It is stated that if in trouble at nighttime, creatures of the night will protect Spawn. They are there to help Spawn and naturally keep him safe and help him on his journey. The secrets to controlling evil are considered impossible for the human mind to grasp, once again touching on the idea that these concepts are above the mental capacity of human comprehension and understanding. His chains at least, react to a point-blank heavenly light attack from an angel. This is really impressive, and it also blocks the attack itself, which is pretty cool. And it's stated that really the only way to beat Spawn is to decapitate him with heavenly light or a heavenly object. Fighting a Hellspawn is stated to, in most situations, be considered suicide for a regular angel. You're almost crazy at that point for attempting it, so this angel pulling up on him is obviously about it. However, she underestimates him, and weakened Spawn is able to get the drop on her and start hurting him. Spawn can also gain amps of latent evil in the earth to help him in fights. So everything underground has latent evil because it's away from the Son of God. Like, pun intended, but literal sunlight is a representation of God. So natural evil down there, he can use that to amp him in fights. Spawn can also summon shadow beings to attack, and they are drawn by his blast he marks you with, which is the Blast of the Damned. They're drawn to it like a power source and will flood you and attack. The animals also aren't normal animals at this point. It's directly shown they've become demonic in nature, so obviously this angel's not bear level. Like, it's not a normal bear mauling them. They're possessed. They are demonic in nature and evil conduits. They're not operating like normal animals. Spawn's suit is problematic, by the way, in his battle to control his emotions because it naturally craves evil. It wants to be in the presence of evil where it thrives. Issue 46. Worms are considered like the most OD power source for natural evil because worms are direct defiance of God because they constantly live under the earth and never once see the sun. They're always under there, so they're always out of the light of God. So they are an amazing power source. Angel light, so like you have to absorb the light of an angel in order it for them to be permanently stopped. So even if you physically kill them, it doesn't matter. That's the only method to permanently get rid of them. Issue 47. Spawn will help this character named Tremors, basically an experimental assassin gone wrong, against the mob. Cog is worried Spawn will lose his mental match with the symbiote for dominance. Like I said, the symbiote wants to do evil hood rat stuff and is trying to take over Spawn. Spawn's trying to resist and reign supreme over the symbiote. So that internal struggle, from Cog's point of view at this point, he believes Spawn's losing it. Spawn pulls up on the Mafia's place and absolutely bolos it. I mean, the security couldn't do anything. He's too much of a beast. Issue 48. Spawn is massively strong. He's casually carrying around like weaponry that's over a ton casually, like it's nothing. Um, and this is like more so just an issue where he's searching through the rough areas of his neighborhood for problems. Issue 49. Cog has to save Spawn from his erratic mutation. So he's changing too fast. He's morphing too fast. Like I said, he's been battling for dominance with the suit, and he's losing and giving in to the metamorphosis that's taking over. He's starting to evolve, and it's going to destroy Al, basically make Al mindless. That, at least that's how it's presented. And then Spawn resists the suit while Cog's trying to help him, and Cog has to save him with non-earthly magic incantations that are powerful enough to stop this process and give Spawn a fighting chance to take back over. We then see Terry is getting folded by bad health. He's been having health events where he passes out, and Terry's driving, passes out again, swerves into a truck, and he might be dead. You don't know yet. Issue 50. I'm going to go ahead and read the recap for y'all so you people understand what's going on in case there's some details you want to be filled on. According to them, here is a good recap of what's going on. Al, aka Spawn, confides in Granny Blake his fear for her safety if he continues to visit her, but his concern is met with peace, basically. She's not worried at all. I didn't talk about that because it wasn't that big of a deal. Able to free Al from the evil cape's grip, Cog admonishes him to harness its power. Finally, Spawn asks Cog for help. This is when we see Terry visit the doctor, who orders him to take tests. Preoccupied with his pending test results and the reconstruction of Wynn's murder conspiracy against him, Terry blacks out, gets hit by a car. Wanda receives a phone call about Terry's accident and rushes to the hospital. Sidegore is approaching New York City, the concrete jungle, and is looking for Simmons. He just naturally hates Al Simmons. And then finally, we see that Twitch and Burke are feeling the financial burden, of literally getting fired. So they're dealing with that. Twitch is starting to snap. Burke's trying to hold it together. It's a whole lot of drama right now. And this is approaching the end of this first chapter of our Spawn movie. So here we go. Issue 50. Spawn needs to release his anger. When he's talking to Cog about this, he says, yo, what gives you so much knowledge on me and knowledge of what I'm going through? And Cog reveals he is a former Hellspawn. Big news, big if true, major impact on this story as Cog now goes from some powerful rando to someone who can legitimately help Spawn. Terry's revealed to be dying. He has a tumor on top of the car crash, so he doesn't have very long to live. And Spawn sees this, has beef with Terry. At this point he still believes Terry's helping Wynn. Doesn't like him, doesn't like the fact he lost his wife, but his love for Wanda, his wife, takes precedence over everything. He had made a vow to her when they got married that he would always seek her happiness, and what would make her happy is her husband being alive, who at that point was Terry. So Spawn uses his energy to save Terry. And as a result, the use of this energy, like I said, it damns him if he uses too much. He used too much, and Spawn gets sent to hell. And at this point, it's officially listed as the beginning of part 2. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Merry Christmas to those that are celebrating. If you like this video, you hit 200 likes, I will drop the second chapter of the movie series. Get you more in tune with what's going on with Spawn, give you more feats, all that. If you want to see videos on individual characters from the Spawn lore and from this verse in particular, or maybe videos covering aspects of the verse that interest you, let me know in the comments. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. It's been your favorite villain, and I will see y'all later. Peace.